Let's get some analysis on this now from Xavier Abu Eid. He's a political scientist and former Palestinian diplomat and joins me live now from Ramallah in the occupied West Bank. Xavier, I first want to talk about the criticism that this board has received, particularly from the West, saying that this may undermine the role that the UN has played for years.
I think it's the criticism. It's right on point, because what President Trump is doing, he's trying to replace the role that the United Nations should be conducting. The Security Council is the body responsible for world peace and security. And what the U.S. has been doing, not recently with President Trump only, but for many decades, is to cast a veto right in order to allow Israel to continue committing the crimes they are committing. And then we got to a genocide. And I think one of the most important points to understand why people are not very confident about this new body is the fact that Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of the country that committed this crisis, we're not talking about rebuilding after an earthquake, it's rebuilding after a genocide. And the person in charge of the genocide is going to sit in the same board with those who have been trying to put an end to this situation. So eventually, I fully understand why people are concerned about this U.S. initiative.
I want to also talk about the role of the mediators, particularly it being Egypt, Qatar, and Turkey. Give us a sense of how these parties can work within this framework of this board.
I don't think it's going to be a very comfortable situation. I mean, from one side, you have countries that have been keen putting an end to the genocide and advancing a political solution, like you mentioned, Egypt, Qatar, and Turkey. And on the other side, you have a group of countries like Argentina, like Paraguay, like Hungary, that consistently vote against the Palestinian right to self-determination and have very little to do in Palestine. So I think now we may want to look at the statement that came out from a group of Arab countries that are going to join this initiative, being very clear, trying to redesign, let's put it this way, what the mandate should be, saying that they are being part of the initiative because they believe on an end game that involves a Palestinian state. In reality, the Board of Peace does not say that the Palestinian state is going to be the end game. Security Council Resolution 2803 never says that the end game is ending the Israeli occupation. And therefore, we are at this stage talking about reconstruction, which is much needed, humanitarian efforts, which of course are much needed, and we are forgetting the political landscape and something which is very basic for the future, which is reuniting Gaza in the West Bank.
All things that should have already began in Gaza, alluding to reconstruction and the humanitarian assistance, it should have already happened during phase 1 and now phase 2 of the ceasefire deal. Israel hasn't abided by the terms of the ceasefire deal. Our correspondent Ashraf, who is in Gaza City right now, has said that 16 Palestinians have been killed over the time span of 2 days. So the Israeli attacks do continue. Given Israel's track record of not abiding by the terms, how are the partners and the members of this board, particularly the United States, going to keep Israel on track to abide by the decisions that are made out of this board?
This is a very important point, and I think it's a question that several foreign ministries are asking at this stage. What I would like to say is that I don't think the U.S. is really understanding what's happening on the ground and what the end game is going to be. I think they see that there is a very desperate situation. They believe that they were the only ones that could stop Israel from continuing the genocide. But at the same time, they have allowed Israel to continue attacking the Palestinian people elsewhere. And I think there is a very important point that has been highlighted constantly by Ashraf from Gaza, which is the fact that on a daily basis, we have Palestinians killed. So imagine if the situation was different. Imagine if we had almost 500 Israelis killed since the signature of the ceasefire. I don't think anyone would be talking at this stage about any sort of diplomatic success. On the contrary, people would be talking about the need to disarm Hamas. But no one is talking, for example, let's not even talk about disarming Israel, but let's talk about justice. Let's talk about accountability. What's going to happen with those responsible for killing over 70,000 people in Gaza, including 20,000 children. Those are discussions that people are not even talking about, and I think are very relevant when we are looking at the day after.
Xavier Abu Eid, thank you so much for being with us here on the News Hour and sharing that analysis with us.